On this channel, we've made a lot of videos about the medieval times and the Middle Ages of Europe. Those times are also known as the Dark Ages because they really were dark. In this video, we want to talk about another story that happened around this time. In that era, the Christian religion was the king of all, and kings and queens had no real power. During the Dark Ages, they killed a lot of people, or should I say tortured to death. For different reasons that don't make sense today. Today, we want to talk about some type of people that would have died back then, and that's for no reason. Redheads and people with green eyes. Spanish Christians really made this popular, and they said redheads and green-eyed people are the devil, and we have to do anything to get rid of them. These rumors spread around Europe like wildfire. The rumor was that redheads and green-eyed people are born with bloody sex, and that's why it's the child of the devil. It was not just humans, they would even kill red fox. The red fox was known as the devil's dog, and they would kill them too. Let's look at the history of redheads. In ancient Egypt, redheads and animals with red fur were highly respected. And they liked it so much that even the pharaohs would dye their hair red. The more we move forward, these guys' situation gets worse. We get to the Roman Empire, a place where redheads were enslaved. So their anti-redhead movement was just beginning. I don't know where the Christians got this idea that the redheads are anti-Christ and they have to be killed. You can't find anything related to that in the Bible either. In the 14th century, this started to get famous, that redheads and green-eyed people are witches and should be killed. Another thing that added to the fire was the rivalry between the Christians and the Jewish people. The Christians made up another story. They said a redhead Jewish person is the devil himself, and they tell the Christians any redhead Jewish person has to be eliminated. The excuse they used back then is that these people drink blood, and that's why their children have red hair. As you know, redheads and green-eyed people are extremely rare. Right now, only 1.5% of the world's population is redhead. Most of them are in the United States. And most redheads have Scottish genes. Green eyes only make up 2% of the population, and you could say the rarity of these two made them be treated differently. But how would they kill these people? In our video about the Inca Empire, we explained how the Christians killed people that thought they were the devil. Fire. And they would use the same method with redheads and green-eyed people. You might not believe it, but during the Dark Ages, they killed 45,000 redheads. And that's in a way that redheads are one of the rarest features on the human body. There are no numbers about how many green-eyed people died, but if you had green eyes back then, you were not safe. And there were no lens so you can change your eye color either. It was rare to find something like this in Europe, something that separated them all. France. In the 16th century, the French say, redheads are not the devil, neither are green-eyed people, and that's why they didn't do anything to them. There is even French paintings from back then that Jesus had red hair, and they even have writings that Jesus was a redhead. But the Germans, on the other hand, didn't follow that rule. 90% of the massacre that was caused to redheads and green-eyed people were by the Germans. It's also good to know that most redheads are women, and out of the 45,000 people that were set on fire, most of them were women. And that's why in old paintings, a witch is always a redhead woman. The only reason that these people suffered back then, it was because they had a rare feature, and when someone saw them, they would be shocked. And the redheads were very obvious because you could see them from a mile away. And that's the reason they seem strange to the normal person. It's good to know until recently, there have been a lot of anti-redhead people. Not like back then that they massacred them, but there's a lot of racism towards them. And that's especially in England. A lot of people were anti-redhead, but social media really squash that. Maybe if there was no social media, people would still have these thoughts about redheads. Green-eyed people and redheads weren't the only people that were treated differently because of the way they looked. Albinos were treated very poorly as well, and to this day they're treated very poorly, mostly in African countries. You have to know that albinus is a kind of disease, and it's not only found in animals, it's also found in plants. Albino people have white skin, white hair, and pink eyes. Right here, we have an African child, but he's an albino. There's a lot of incidences that albino African children are killed because of being albino. And different nations in Africa believe when you kill them, you have to bury them because it's a sign of bad luck. And obviously, if you keep them alive, it's also another sign of bad luck. Albinus is a very rare disease, even rarer than being redhead or having green eyes. But in the last 20 years, in the entire continent of Africa, more than 20,000 albino kids were killed just because of being albino. There's other setbacks of being albino. One of the main problems of being albino is that it's a disease and you're more prone to getting sick, so you have a shorter life. We have a lot of instances that albino people die before the age of 40, but if you have access to medicine, you can have a longer life. The human is a very strange creature. Even though it's the smartest being on earth, it does a lot of things that are shameful.